This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. A small child is dumped in a field with a dead body. Yes, I did actually just say that. A man hacks his mother to death with an axe, and drink driving. We have a look at its deadly toll. But firstly, here is a story that honestly had me gasp in disbelief when it came across my desk, as it stretches credulity to its very limits. So let me tell you this one in chronological order. There was a lady, this lady to be exact, and her name was Nam Chantu. Now Nam, with her niece, headed off to a medical clinic. But what Nam did not know was it was to be her last day on earth, as the clinic would not help her, but in fact kill her. As for the young niece, she was going to become not just the witness to a horrible murder, but also become very deeply woven into what is a truly horrific story. It was late afternoon when Nam and her niece pulled up at the clinic on her motto. Nam had come for an injection. She had been feeling a little unwell of late. But instead of vitalizing the woman with a vitamin injection or similar, the injection that Nam received stopped her heart dead. It is surmised that an untrained member of clinic staff did one of two things. They either got the dosage horribly wrong, or they administered completely the wrong medication. Either can be quoted as medical incompetence of an epic scale. But that is not even the worst part, not by an awful long way. As the two people running this illegal medical clinic did not even try and seek any medical help in the hope of resuscitating their patient, they did something extremely different. And it's right now that we go through the looking glass. The clinic owners waited until dark, and when the streets outside got quiet, they placed the dead woman's body into a car. They then put the dead woman's young niece alongside her in that same car, and they drove off into the countryside. Arriving at a quiet spot, the clinic owners then dragged the dead woman to some bushes and dumped her there. They then returned to the very same car, and they picked up the little girl, who was about 3 years old, and they left her next to the dead body. They then drove away, leaving a 3-year-old girl with a dead body in the middle of the countryside in the dead of night. How is this story even possible? Now, here is the thing. The two clinic owners had operated this illegal medical clinic for years. Have a closer look at the clinic itself. It's pretty swanky. It's even open 24 hours a day, and it has plenty of seats in reception. Not only was this clinic unlicensed and completely illegal, but the staff had absolutely no medical training. So, have a think. Is this really the first person this hospital has killed? Or just maybe this is the first that could be directly linked to some very, very dubious medical care. On this week's extended crime desk, a horrifying find by a scavenger in the bins, an officer of the law guns down 2 of his neighbours, and a teacher makes sex videos of a pupil. In Kampong Cham, a horrific murder was committed this week as a man hacked his own mother to death in the most brutal way possible. The horror was unprecedented, but the reason for the crime was all too familiar. The 31-year-old man brutally murdered his 64-year-old mother with an axe, and he did it in plain sight of many eyewitnesses. The 31-year-old man had a history of substance abuse and was known to many as a drug addict. And on the day of the crime, he had been witnessed taking methamphetamine. But when the drugs ran out, he went to his mother at 9 o'clock that morning, and he demanded more money. She refused, and an argument ensued. The enraged son stormed off, but he was to return with an axe. He found his mother under a tree in a nearby rice field. She was watching numerous workers she had hired to gather their rice crop. What she did not see until the last moment was her drug-crazed son bearing down on her. The son raised the axe and then struck his own mother multiple times in the head and in the face. Blood and bones splattered the tree that she was sitting next to. The workers that were nearby looked on in horror as the son continued to savagely hack away. They did not try to intervene, for they knew he was not only high on drugs, but he had a violent reputation. So they ran from the scene to go and get help. When the police arrived at the crime scene, they could not believe what they saw. The old lady's body lay under the tree. Her head had been struck so many times with the axe, she was now unrecognizable. It did not take long for the authorities to find the son. He had returned to the woodshed from whence he got the axe. He immediately confessed to his crime and is now awaiting his court date. And some say his place in hell. A law officer is being questioned this week after a couple was seriously injured following an altercation in Khmer City. The suspect was identified as Colonel Soy, who is aged 59, and he held the elevated position of Chief of the Revenue Collection Office at the Economic and Financial Department in the Ministry of Interior. Now, it's worth pausing here, as it seems by the job description that this officer's job was being a tax collector, and that has caused some to comment on the internet, asking why would it be that a man whose duties revolve around tax collection would need access to a firearm? After all, it is not often many people get shot by a member of the tax department. The shooting itself took place at 9 p.m. on Sunday at his home in Kandal province. Major Vani, the deputy chief of the city police, said the injured victims are neighbours of the officer, and according to him, the victims and suspects have often argued, mostly over the couple's loud music that the officer's family found extremely annoying, which I'm sure we can all sympathise with. But it all came to a head last Sunday night as yet another argument erupted in front of the suspect's house, and the officer snapped at the two people he considered to be wholly unreasonable. He was fed up with their music, and the officer pulled out his gun and he started shooting the couple. He fired several shots at the man, seriously injuring him in his ribs, his forearm, and in his legs. He then turned the gun on the woman and he hit her multiple times as well. The officer himself was soon arrested and is now in police custody, where he will be regretting ever carrying that gun. As that weapon did not protect him, it ruined his life and almost killed two others, all because of a single moment of madness when he lost control. Now to the saddest story I have ever told, and oddly, it is also the shortest. As news has reached our news desk of a horrific find by a scavenger. The scavenger was looking for metal, cardboard, and anything else that could be recycled or repurposed. And he often searched the bins by the referral hospital in Poi City. He opened the bins and he rummaged around. He then found a plastic bag which felt heavier than was normal for something of that size. He retrieved the bag and he placed it on the floor where he opened it. What he discovered Inside that bag will be etched on his memory for the rest of his life. For inside the bag was the body of a baby girl, a girl who had died and then been wrapped in plastic bags and dumped into the bin. The scavenger reported the find to the police, and now the hunt is on for the mother of that child, a mother that needs not our hatred or incrimination, but understanding. As to this story, I am sure it has tragedy behind it that few of us would comprehend. Now, we usually cut away from our crime desk here and go to our final story, but due to an influx of crime stories this week, we have other crime stories that I wish to cover. And we start with this guy. Have a look at his photo and have a guess what he does for a living. He looks rather young, does he not? And if you think that, you would be right, as he is just 19 years old. But even at such a young age, he was trusted with the position of being a teacher at Techville Commune in Kandal province. Now, this teacher, being so young, was of course with teenage girls of a not too dissimilar age, and he soon struck up a relationship with one of his pupils. That relationship became sexual, and he abused his position as a teacher by not only having sex with the young girl, but also filming her on his mobile phone during sexual acts. The teacher then attempted to exert control over the girl by threatening to release the videos he had taken if she ever disclosed their relationship. And quite incredibly, he did follow up on his threat by sending videos of this young girl committing sexual acts to her father. Well, the father, as we can all guess, became enraged beyond all comprehension, and it was not long before the police were informed and the teacher was placed in handcuffs. He currently awaits a court date and has an awful lot of explaining to do. In our final story this week, I wish to review a few recent stories, and they all have a theme, and that is death at the hands of irresponsible drunk drivers. Headlines like this one: drunk driver causes death of man in Phnom Penh. Then there is this one: 5 years for drunk driver who killed 4 in Phnom Penh smash. Then there's this one: drunk driver to be prosecuted after death in front of Phnom Penh International Airport. And by the way, this woman really annoys me, as she has put on her best Facebook smile when the photo was taken, showing a complete lack of understanding as to how very grave her crime was. And then there was this unholy mess. Carnage on the streets of Phnom Penh, 1 dead, 4 seriously injured by drunk driver. I want to dwell here for a moment, as the word carnage in the press is so often overused. But on this occasion, our reporter has got it exactly right. Have a look at the utter carnage this particular drunk driver created. It is beyond all belief. It looks less like a car accident and more like a scrapyard. And when looking at the vehicle driven by that drunk driver, we see why. Here is the front of the vehicle utterly ruined, and this is the rear of that very same vehicle. The car itself spun wildly out of control as it killed and it maimed the innocent. And these stories are from the past few weeks. These are not something I have dug out of the archives. They are all very recent. And to show the seriousness of all these, there is no better photo than this one. Here is a man holding a photo of his dead baby that was killed by an irresponsible driver. So when this new headline surfaced this very week, 5 die in deadly hit and run, it had, shall we say, a little of the old déjà vu about it. The report itself was scant. It said 5 people are confirmed to have died in a major crash in Karachi province. The dead include 2 elderly women, a little girl, and 2 boys riding a motorcycle. Now then, did the driver in this incident try and help the old ladies, the little girl, or the young boys? No, he did not. He did the traditional and he fled the scene, leaving blood and death in his wake. All these stories are the tolling bell of a new age, and that is of increasing car ownership within the kingdom. And the problem is, the crime of drinking and driving is not being taken seriously by many irresponsible drivers. And because they do have so little respect for the law, it is always the most innocent who pay the price. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. Here we are at the end of the show, and as is now our tradition, a photo from my last week. And last week I discovered this. It doesn't look like much, but it's so hard. It's an oxbow lake. I don't know if you know what an oxbow lake is. You'll have to look it up if you don't know. But I left the cycle path, went down a dirt road, and found this fantastic part of a river. And it was, honestly, it was heart-stoppingly beautiful. It made me so happy for the entire day. It was wonderful. So if you're feeling a bit down, get out there, do some exploring. That's what I'm telling you. And whilst you do that, you will discover that the weather is really rather good. What have we got? We've got no rain. Whoa, that's the first time in an awful long time. So it's going to get hotter and it's going to get more humid. Already the humidity is heading towards the 70 degrees, and your highest temperature, well, you're looking at 34. This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly